This video is primarily meant for Christine and her team at Thompson Guitars, but I also have other friends in mind as I think some of these thoughts. Yesterday, I had the third short meeting this week, or the third meeting, it was shorter this week, with folks at Thompson Guitars. I'm in the process of having a beautiful guitar built there. And we're talking about Tonewood. We've been going back and forth, or around and around about Tonewood for quite a while. And I'll get to this in a minute. I indicated that I thought I might want to go a completely different direction than the traditional bluegrass Tonewoods, mahogany, rosewood, towards something more sustainable and something that felt to me more Oregonian. Not to say that it needs to be grown in Oregon necessarily, but something that maybe is at least domestic and speaks to a supply chain that is sustainable. And Christine, reminded me that, well, one thing is that to get that bluegrass sound, most people rely on rosewood and mahogany, and she kind of, and I gave her like a, well, so, and she totally properly, and I empathize, kind of gave me this double take, like, well, don't you play bluegrass? I think that's what she said. And that question has had me thinking all day about whether I play bluegrass and what it means to play bluegrass, about what that question means in the context of supply chains and sources of scarce goods, and about what critique it is that we're making in the world by stewarding and caring about traditional music. See, the question of whether or not I play bluegrass is, a scary one for me, because I want to play bluegrass. I want at times to be a bluegrass musician. I don't only want to play bluegrass, but I want to be capable of playing something that is clearly identifiable as being part of that lineage of highly technical, refined country music. That urban phenomenon that became of country music, and all that it has meant culturally, and all that it has meant in the run-up to the age of psychedelia that in turn has begat internet independence and crypto anarchy. So when you ask if I play bluegrass, I don't think anyone can really properly say, even though I do sometimes say this, I play bluegrass. I think someone else has to. The beholding has to be done in a qualified eye. And the truth of the matter is that I mostly play music that sounds like what I'm playing right now. Little dirty third there, that's kind of bluegrassy. Now, getting more into what the question really means about building a guitar at an incredible luthier like Thompson, my sense is that it's possible to go to a place like Thompson and know what sound you want from your guitar. And it's possible at a very few places on earth, and Thompson is one of them, to be able to achieve that. This guitar has no wood at all. It's carbon fiber. But it has, stiff, hard back. A molded body. It has higher action than most synthetic guitars. I play with D'Addario XT mediums, which are a fairly common bluegrass string, I think. And I get a lot of slap and punch. So you could maybe say on one hand that this is counter-traditional to play this style of music with this type of guitar. On the other hand, there are elements of the tradition that I think you could say a guitar of this style identifies fairly clearly with. For one, this guitar is weatherproof, more or less. And that is a technology that wasn't available during the Down from the Mountain period, when the crucible container of Appalachian music that drove the Stanley Brothers and Doc Watson and Bill Monroe down from the mountains and caused them to have to adapt their music for the journey aboard a freight train or pickup truck. I mean, maybe not those individual players, but surely there were many freight train and pickup truck journeys from countryside to city seeking the distribution mechanism of AM radio. And of course, we know this is what prompted a system of rhythm consisting of stringed instruments, and the decision to not include a drum kit for what at the time was a practicality of transportation, and became a quintessential piece of the sound of Americana. Now, maybe using a guitar that can travel well, given that bluegrass is fundamentally a traveling phenomenon. Maybe that is in keeping with the tradition. I'm confident my new Thompson, when I get it, will travel well also. But my point is more that I think it's as much as understanding what is bluegrass can be in the eye of the beholder, understanding what is traditional sometimes also requires an acute beholder. One thing I think we know that is clearly established and too infrequently discussed is that this word traditional, whatever else it means or doesn't mean, I think I said this in another video, certainly it means to refer to a corpus of music that has lived and evolved outside copyright, outside the intellectual property industrial complex. In fact, if you see a set list with the word traditional on it, that's essentially what it means. Author unknown. We choose to play this without ascribing its provenance to a single source, and instead we speak to its status in its tradition. I usually finger pick this. It's interesting to play it with a pick. Time in your hair, where you go. The living's harder than it's been before. People are drifting from door to door. Find no heaven, I don't care where they go. If I ever get off of this killing flow and find no heaven, I don't care where they go. I won't get this slow anymore. Is it counter-traditional to add throat singing to that song? One weird, probably incorrect perspective might be to say, well, if you're from it, if your tradition is one where throat singing is the tradition, then that's what makes it traditional. I think sometimes we leap too quickly to that notion. That the lane of our own tradition is what makes something traditional. The lane of our own tradition is important, don't get me wrong. Having recently reconsidered my Irish heritage in picking up the tin whistle, my Scottish heritage in visiting the incredible pub scene in Glasgow, has informed that perspective within me. But I think there's a bigger notion, which is that another part of what traditional perhaps means, not as strongly as the argument about provenance and copyright, but maybe right behind it, is that traditional, one of the things that it means, especially with respect to Appalachia, is an acceptance of stylistic critiques strong enough to bend the shape of the music into a new phenomenon. Perhaps, in the inclusion of the African banjo and what we today call bluegrass, along with the frenetic fiddle, which, a lot of bluegrass fiddle is borrowed from the reels and ballads of the Irish pubs, along with the mandolin, a Mediterranean instrument, the dobro, a Czechoslovakian instrument, obviously invented in America, but by a Czechoslovakian innovator drawing upon his traditions, or the traditions that he could recall from his homeland. I think we say that tastefully applied, the introduction of new sounds is also part of what makes music traditional. It seems counterintuitive at first. How can you have a tradition if it's so ever-changing? Then nothing is maintained within the context of the tradition. But I think that the response then is that it's the change that is the constant within the tradition. And it dovetails with a corpus that we regard as traditional. And together, constant change with a shared corpus, a lineal corpus, creates a tradition. So, what does this have to do with my visit to Thompson Guitars? I think it's a good time to evaluate maybe what it means for a guitar to be traditional. I'm not sure that, the folks at Thompson have been incredibly awesome and patient and inclusive with me in this process, and they got out a whole bunch of sets of Madagascar rosewood, tapped them so I could hear the tones, to pick out an individual set of this tonewood that I had already selected. I already told them I wanted Madagascar rosewood. And then I picked one that I liked from among those that I liked the sound of. And then went home, let that sound ring throughout my skull. Got up the following morning, got on my mountain bike, and went into the hills of Sisters, Oregon here, the Peterson Ridge Trail. Hugged some trees. Listen to an audiobook. Is that traditional? Listening to an audiobook in the woods during a mountain bike ride. And during the course of that, I felt overcome with this sense that importing these exotic woods, even Madagascar rosewood, is nowhere near as endangered as Brazilian rosewood, but, Madagascar has long had a colonialistic relationship to international trade. It has long been at the other end of the bargaining table from privilege and empire, obviously. And Madagascar rosewood is in particular something that, a material about which scholarly conservationists have qualms, and you can go online and read all kinds of greenwashing about how it's been a success, but it seems to me that there is a chorus trying to raise an alarm about rosewood and ebony, and about their depletion, and about their role in their native ecosystems, which is also depleted. And I don't know. I don't know that you could ever have such a righteous disposition as to know that you've built a guitar that is truly capturing the all of the ethical standards of the economics of planet Earth. That is a perfection that I'm not going for, but I also recognize that it is possible, given the domestic woods, to take an interesting stand and say, hey, we're gonna instead of the process that I described at the beginning, where maybe I have this particular sound that I want. Heck, maybe it's the sound of this guitar. So instead of knowing that I love that particular sound, or I love the particular sound of Tony Rice's Santa Cruz Brazilian Rosewood, or Billy String's Thompson, of course, one of the most notable guitars in my life. I've been feet away from it so many times, hearing it make the most incredible sounds to huge crowds of people, inspiring the vibrations of the spruce on the top and the rosewood on the back and sides, all creating this input to this pickup that runs through this Byzantine circuit of analog and digital machinery, and eventually into the shared zeitgeist of several thousand people to be inspired by tradition. I think that instead of seeking that sound, or a sound in particular, what I'm interested in is to understand if we make a guitar that we feel good about, that uses American woods, that looks with an eye towards sustainability, and that is truly traditional in the sense of understanding change and time and the unique nature of each moment in the universe as it carries this traditional corpus. And we instead say, what does that guitar sound like? Maybe that's the guitar I want to play. I think a walnut back, that's what we're talking about now. I tapped a few sets of walnut. If we had a walnut back at some kind of a sustainable fingerboard, we got rid of all the rosewood and ebony, and we even, is something that I can look at and describe as part of the metaphor of the critique of crypto economics, which is to say, an instrument, which is what I believe blockchain technology is, an instrument designed to overcome the false narratives of scarcity and poverty, that is designed to interdict, above all else, other things as well, but to interdict a system whereby profoundly easy money, by which I mean cheap, centrally controlled money, creates an incentive structure so adverse to saving that instead of saving, instead of building and enriching our communities, we send this money constantly around the world chasing cheap plastic shit to be shipped here. If that's the instrument that blockchain tech is, and I hope that it is, it's the reason that I'm involved, then I would like to have an instrument that could make the sounds of that critique on a stage that itself embodies that same tradition. And that really has been my thoughts over the course of this day about the relationship between bluegrass and Tonewoods and trees and supply chains and cryptography.
Want to live in the fire in our hearts is ours to give. The earth makes notes out of some of its stone, and they carry good news through the air back home.
So yeah, I'm thinking walnut.